Hi everyone. Welcome to workshop number 5 of your Planted Goodness workshops. Today we're going to discuss land degradation, which is one of the many effects of livestock on the environment, as well as we're going to talk about cover cropping, which is one of the principles of regenerative agriculture, which the idea is to keep the ground or soil covered at all times in order for it to retain moisture and nutrients, and it's almost the reverse of land degradation. So first we'll start off by talking about land usage and degradation. We're going to have two main topics. One is degradation, which is the declining of soil quality. It's when the soil becomes unhealthy. I know it seems like a big word, but it's a pretty simple concept. It's just when soil becomes so unhealthy that it loses its productive capacity. The other topic we're going to discuss is deforestation, which is the cutting, clearing, and destruction of forests. This is the permanent removal of trees to make room for something else that is not forest. And in this case, it would be for livestock or for the production of feed crops for the livestock. So land degradation may seem like a big idea, but it's really not. Think of your health. If you don't take care of your body, your health will become worse. For example, if you eat junk food all the time, if you smoke, if you just never exercise, your health might decline. And if your health is bad, it won't be able to do its job taking care of your body. This is very similar to the soil. If we don't take care of the soil properly, it becomes sick and it won't be able to do its job, which is providing the plants with nutrients and storing carbon. So the degradation of the soil is just the soil losing its health, just as if our own health was to decline. There are three main issues with land degradation. It's super fast, it's happening at a rapid pace, which contributes to the decline in productivity of agricultural land. It also releases greenhouse gas emissions because when land is degraded, it releases its stored carbon and nitrous oxide into the air, which contributes to the layer of greenhouse gases that cause global warming. And finally, land degradation leads to the land losing its fertility. And scientists warn that we are losing about 24 billion tons of fertile soil a year. And if we continue at this rate, 95% of Earth's farmable land could be degraded by 2050. 95%. Livestock also leads to land degradation through overgrazing, which is when the grazing of livestock is not well managed or there's too much livestock on one piece of land. The soil becomes degraded. This occurs because the demand for meat is so high that farms have to really pack livestock onto one piece of land in order for them to produce enough livestock in order to meet the demands of the market. Another way livestock leads to land degradation is through producing feed crops. Again, fertilizers are used to produce the feed crops because usually it's just corn and soy, so farmers have to provide the nutrients to the soil, and that degrades it, and it makes it rely on the fertilizer for nutrients. Producing feed crops also has another implication. It leads to deforestation because they need a lot of land to produce all the crops to feed the livestock. Overgrazing leads to soil compaction, which is when the soil particles are pressed together because the livestock trample over it, which makes it harder for water to be absorbed. It also leads to soil erosion, which is the wearing away of topsoil. And topsoil is just that top layer of soil which contains the most organic matter and microorganisms. So it's probably the most important layer of soil for the plant. And overgrazing also contributes to the releasing of carbon because degraded soil can no longer hold as much organic matter. So, as we talked about before with carbon sequestration, this would do the opposite. Instead of bringing carbon into the soil, it would release it into the atmosphere, which would again contribute to global warming. So 20% of livestock lands have been degraded due to overgrazing. 20%. And that just shows you how great the demand for meat has become on the market, that farmers have had to pack more livestock into one little piece of land. In dry areas, livestock have even degraded closer to 75% of pasture lands. However, keep in mind, as we've discussed earlier, I think in workshop 3, if done sustainably, grazing livestock can actually be very beneficial and can increase soil fertility. However, it's when the demand for meat becomes higher and farmers have to raise more livestock on one piece of land that lands become overgrazed and exploited, which leads to land degradation. There's also intensive feed crop production, which leads to things such as pesticide use, the depletion of organic matter, increased water usage, artificial fertilizer usage, severe erosion, and the emission of carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide, both of which are greenhouse gases, as we know. Livestock feed, which is corn and soy, grow on monocrop farms. The lack of diversity attracts many pests, so farmers have to use pesticides because they don't have the diversity to naturally fend off pests. Intensive farming requires more water because degraded soil doesn't absorb it as well as healthy soil. Organic matter and the carbon stored in the soil is depleted, and the carbon is actually released into the atmosphere. Farmers use fertilizers, which breaks the relationships between the plants, soil, and microorganisms. If you remember back to workshop 3, when we discussed the relationship between the fungi and the soil through our decomposers and soil. And many of these nutrients are not absorbed by the crop and runoff, which releases nitrous oxide, and the degrading of the land also leads to soil erosion. Another issue that we have to think about is our future, which is what makes land degradation so important that we stop. Because in order to feed the billions of people that make up our earth, and this number is constantly rising, we have to stop degrading our soil, or else we will not be able to produce enough food to feed everyone. Because as we said earlier, the degradation of land is when the productivity of the soil decreases. So as the productivity decreases, we won't be able to make as much food, which is going to be really, really important for the future. So let's talk about land usage now and deforestation. 30% of Earth's land surface is used for livestock versus the 8% of Earth's land surface that is used for crops directly consumed by humans. 30% of Earth is going towards producing crops, which are then fed to the livestock, and then we eat the meat. So it adds another step in the process, whereas only 8% of Earth's land is used to grow crops that are directly given to humans to eat. And by adding an extra step in the 30% of Earth's land, we are losing a bunch of calories and a bunch of the food we produce, because the meat, as we've talked about before, doesn't give us all of the calories that we give the meat. So we may give the cows 16 pounds of grain, but they only give us 1 pound of beef back. So we're losing all of those calories and we're taking up more of Earth's land surface. Livestock feed production uses 33% of Earth's farmable land, and that's just for the feed production, not even for the space that the livestock takes just to stand on. So this makes livestock the largest man-made user of land. And as you can see in the infographic to the right, you can see how on a standard American diet, 2 football fields are needed to feed 1 person per year. And that's consuming a lot of livestock and meat and animal-based products. But on a plant-based diet, 2 football fields feed 14 people per year. That is 13 people more than on a diet full of meat and animal-based products. Going further in our discussion about land usage, animal-based product farming uses 83% of the world's farmland, but only provides 18% of the world's calories. That's a big difference, which shows the inefficiency of livestock farming, because imagine how much more food could be produced if we just ate the crops from the farmland, if we took out that middle step, because we use animals as the middlemen. If we just went from farm to humans, we would have so much more food rather than going from farm, animals, humans. Animals consume up to 6 times more protein than they produce. As I said just right now, livestock are the middlemen. We grow the crops, then we feed them to the animals, then we eat the animals. We could obtain so much more food if we just ate more plants straight from the source and cut out that, or started to cut out that middleman. We lose a lot of resources by using these middlemen. 264 gallons of water is used to create 1 quart of milk. Beef contains 3% of the calories we feed the cows, so we lose the other 97% of the calories we feed them. And this is illustrated because 16 pounds of grain is used to create 1 pound of beef. So we're losing like 15 pounds of food. Let's dive deeper into rainforests and learn a little bit more about rainforests, which are being destroyed because of the expansion of livestock production.
Shrouded in a blanket of clouds, they awaken. Their canopies of green glitter in the sun. Their wildlife start to slither, chirp, and growl. And one of the planet's richest ecosystems comes to life. Rainforests are the oldest living ecosystems on the planet. Some can trace their origins to over 70 million years ago, back to a time when dinosaurs still roamed the Earth. While the giant reptiles have disappeared, rainforests continue to thrive, growing on every continent except Antarctica. Two types of rainforests are scattered across the globe: temperate and tropical. Temperate rainforests are mainly found in the mid-latitudes, often near cooler, coastal, mountainous regions. Tropical rainforests are primarily located in warmer climates, between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. As their names imply, temperate and tropical rainforests are the wettest forests on Earth, receiving up to about 33 feet of rain per year. This precipitation plays a critical role in creating an exceptionally lush and biologically diverse habitat. While rainforests only make up about 6% of the Earth's surface area, they are home to over half of the world's plant and animal species. This biodiversity creates benefits that extend far beyond the rainforest boundaries. Rainforest plants produce an assortment of food items, in addition to ingredients useful in everyday products and medicines. In fact, an estimated 70% of the plants used in cancer treatments are only found in rainforests. On an even larger scale, rainforests help to stabilize the planet's climate. Its lush green vegetation regulate global temperatures by absorbing massive amounts of radiation from the sun. They also absorb vast amounts of carbon dioxide and convert them into oxygen, about 40% of the planet's breathable air. Over the past few centuries, rainforests have disappeared at an alarming rate. Factors such as economic inequalities, human development, and demand for natural resources have fueled the deforestation of these rich ecosystems. At the current rate, rainforests, which have survived for over 70 million years, may completely disappear within the next century. But through educational campaigns, sustainable logging practices, and cooperation with local communities, deforestation may begin to slow down, helping preserve rainforests for many generations to come.
So I hope you enjoyed that rainforest video. Here's some questions to think about after watching that video. What were some things you learned about rainforests? Was there anything you thought that was cool? Were there any animals that caught your eye? Were there any cool plants or bright colors that stood out to you? Think about these questions and maybe discuss a little. You can pause the video here and talk about it with each other. Exploring rainforests. Rainforests are so cool, and I'm so intrigued by rainforests. They're some of the oldest living ecosystems in the world. Some are over 70 million years old. That was around the time of the dinosaurs. They're very lush and diverse with lots of green and other bright colors. And they only take up about 6% of Earth's surface, but they house over 50% of the world's plants and animals, which just shows how lush and diverse rainforests are. They absorb lots of solar radiation and carbon dioxide and produce lots of oxygen. So they take in a lot of the excess of greenhouse gases we create. Here are some animals that are found in rainforests, and you may have seen some of them in the video, or you may have seen some other ones that I didn't list. But there's anteaters, armadillos, cassowaries, chimpanzees, macaws, panthers, vultures, baboons, eagles, jaguars, sloths, toucans, gorillas, snakes, orangutans, capybaras, lizards, and frogs. Here's some plants that you may have seen, or you may have seen some other ones in the video that I didn't even list here. There's the heliconia flower, rubber tree, orchids, passion fruit flower, giant water lilies, cacao, banana tree, coffee plant, monkey brush vine, Brazil nut tree, lianas, strangler fig, huimba, mahogany, asiote, and ironwood. So as you can see, there's so many different plants and animals that are alive and thriving in the rainforest, and the rainforest is just home to all of these. And not even all of the species that exist in the rainforest have been discovered yet by scientists. The Amazon is the world's largest rainforest and river basin. More species are found here than anywhere else in the world. 10% of the known species on Earth live here. 3,000 species of fish live here, which is the largest number of fish species in the world in one place. 75% of the plant species are unique to the Amazon, so you'll never find them anywhere else outside of the Amazon. And 670 million hectares of rainforest can be found here. However, here's the sad part. 70% of former Amazon rainforests have been destroyed to clear room for cattle grazing and feed crop production. So 70% of these rainforests have been destroyed, and that's directly related to the overproduction of livestock. That leaves only 30% of Amazon rainforests that are left. Even the remainder of the Amazon rainforests are mostly covered by feed crops for the livestock. Pressures on the land from the livestock is the largest factor in Latin America's deforestation. And deforestation kills many diverse plant species and takes the homes of many animals. Now let's talk about soy. The expansion of soy plantations is a huge driver of this deforestation. 70% of the world's soy is fed to livestock, and only 6% of soy is fed directly to humans. So soy is closely linked to deforestation. However, if you think about it, it's really closely linked to the production of livestock, because 70% of the soy that's produced goes directly to feed the livestock, and only 6% is consumed by humans. And in the Amazon, the percentage is even higher. 80% of the soy grown is fed to the animals. So soy is the least sustainable plant-based product, but even the least sustainable plant-based product is more sustainable than any animal-based product. For example, beef produces 231 pounds of greenhouse gases per 3.5 ounces versus tofu, which produces 7.8 pounds of greenhouse gases per 3.5 ounces. It also takes, I know you can't see the number because my face is blocking it, sorry, but it takes 264 gallons of water to produce 1 quart of cow's milk, whereas it only takes 78 gallons of water to produce 1 quart of soy milk. And remember, soy and tofu, which is made of soy, are the least sustainable plant-based products, and they're still more sustainable than any animal-based product. What you can do. Eating less meat and animal-based products is one big step towards reducing the high demand for meat. Reducing this demand is key to stopping this continued destruction of rainforests and protecting all those beautiful species that we just discovered. Regenerative agriculture, we're going to talk about one principle called cover cropping today, which is keeping the soil constantly covered. A cover crop is just a crop of a specific plant that is grown primarily for the benefit of the soil and not for harvest. Some examples of cover crops are rye, which is used to loosen compacted soil and suppress weeds, sorghum, which adds organic material and suppresses weeds, comfrey, which adds nitrogen and potassium, and clover, which adds nitrogen to the soil. Some of the benefits of cover crops are that they build soil health because they help break disease cycles and crop residues add organic matter to the soil. They also provide nutrients to the soil because they enrich the soil with nutrients such as nitrogen and carbon. They help the soil retain water because they create pores in the soil. And they also help with natural weed reduction, so you don't need to use herbicides. Getting carbon back into the soil. Soil holds 4 times as much carbon as the atmosphere. Plants get their carbon through photosynthesis, and then plants push carbon through their roots into the soil in what's called exudates. Microorganisms then eat these carbon-rich exudates, which builds the organic matter and soil fertility. This whole process that we just talked about is known as carbon sequestration, as we were looking at in workshop number 3. However, grain crops can't do this alone. Grain crops don't really contribute that much to soil carbon because it takes time for plants to produce enough carbon to push through exudates. So there's really only a 4 to 5 week period where the exudates are pushed into the soil. That means cover crops are necessary to get carbon back into the soil because cover crops can help push more carbon exudates into the soil. Because if you think about it, if you have more plants all pushing carbon into the soil all year long, then you're going to get way more carbon into the soil than just trying to have like grain crops push carbon into the soil. How does this relate to eating less meat though? Well, cover cropping combats land degradation, which is caused by the overproduction of livestock. Cover cropping improves soil fertility and health. Eating less meat is something we can do to lessen the demand for meat. And cover cropping is how sustainable agriculture is evolving to also address the problem of land degradation. As we eat less meat, cover cropping is also doing its job to help rebuild soil fertility. Okay, and finally, we're going to end with a last round of fantastic foods. Good luck. Okay, here's the first food. I'm a root vegetable and am usually orange, purple, black, red, or white. Although I was originally grown from my leaves and seeds, the most commonly eaten part of me is now my taproot, which is the biggest root of a plant. I'm a vegetable that has a sweet flavor, which allows me to be used in some desserts, like a certain type of cake. What am I? Think of the cake part. That's a big hint. I'm a carrot. Yes, I love carrot cake. Do you guys like carrot cake? Carrots also have plenty of great nutrients, and I'm sure you were told as a kid, like carrots are good for your eyes. Okay, here's the next one. I'm a yellow edible vegetable that can be bought either canned or dried. I originate from the Middle East, and I am a great source of protein. A popular dish made out of me is hummus. What am I? I'm a chickpea. Yes, chickpeas are what you use to make hummus, and they're also a great source of plant-based protein. They're really good if you fry them a little bit or if you saute them and crisp them up, and then you can make little chickpea crisps. This one is a red fruit with many seeds on the inside. However, sometimes people mistake me for a vegetable. That's a big hint. What do we all debate about? Sometimes I can be very small, and other times I can get to be as big as a baseball. I'm used in a lot of Italian food, and although typically red, I could also be yellow, red, green, or orange. What am I? I'm a tomato! Yes, tomatoes are not only red, they come in a bunch of different colors and they can be beautiful. And they're also used in many, many plant-based dishes. Finally, last one, I'm typically made from coagulating soy milk, then being pressed into firm blocks. I'm an excellent source of plant-based protein and am an excellent replacement for meat. I can also be referred to as bean curd. I'm found in a lot of Asian dishes such as curry, soups, and stir fries. What am I? Hint, we talked about it earlier. Tofu, yes. Tofu is a really good substitute for meat in a lot of plant-based dishes, and you can marinate it differently because by itself it doesn't have that much of a flavor, but you can put whatever kind of spices or marinade you want on it and make it taste a lot like meat. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening to all of these workshops. I hope you learned something new and I hope you go out and try some new plant-based foods. If you have any questions about anything at all, please email me at plantedgoodness@gmail.com. Also, please visit my website, plantedgoodness.org, if you want any new recipes or some plant-based ideas to incorporate into your own life, or if you want some more information or activities about all of this good stuff. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed. Bye.